Do you have your shirt on?
Last I checked, I did, yes. Why?
Do you have your shirt on?
Black Reds Radio, episode 4, in Westland, with Corey, Brinn.
Hello, Reds fans. This is Mike from WhackReds.com. You're listening to Whack Reds Radio, episode 4 with Corey Brinn. How's it going, Corey?
Good, Mike. How you doing tonight?
Doing good. Corey Brinn is the head clubhouse and equipment manager for the Dayton Dragons. You've been doing that since January 2008. You also run a website called CoreyBrinn.com. It chronicles the ins and outs, the day-to-day operations of the Dayton Dragons. A lot of great interviews, videos, all kinds of insights on there. What I want you to do is give me a pitch for your site. Why should our listeners go there? Let us know what's going on at CoreyBrinn.com.
I like to provide kind of a behind-the-scenes look at minor league baseball. It seems like all that's out there today, are a lot of major league stuff. Unless you're Mike Leake, all the players do start in the minor leagues. So I just kind of want to give the fans, an inside look of, what goes on, because life kind of is different in the minor leagues compared to, what the players accomplish when they reach the majors.
I'm a big fan of Dayton myself. I actually grew up in Centerville and moved to Cincinnati. I know you went to Sycamore High School here in Cincinnati. You went to the University of Cincinnati and Xavier, and you made the move to Dayton. What highlights would you want our listeners to know about that go on in Dayton, and can you compare the two cities for me?
Dayton, to me, is a great sports town. Like you said, growing up in Cincinnati, we always had the major sports down there, but being able to come up north, when I was in high school, we played our state championship at UD Arena, getting a look at a little bit of what Dayton's all about. It's a great sports town. They really support the Dayton Flyers, the Wright State Raiders, and for the last 10 seasons, the Dayton Dragons. I remember coming up, in high school to try to get a ticket to a game, and you can't. Everything in Dayton is sold out. I had a buddy put his name on the ticket list for season tickets, and it took him 10 years. It took him 7 years to call and offer him the opportunity to buy the tickets. So, for people who haven't been to Dayton, it's a great baseball city. They really support the Dragons pretty well.
You guys are in your 11th season. You actually hold a record for consecutive sold-out games for single-A ball club, don't you?
Yeah, I think going into the season, it was at 704. We've had 3 home games, so I believe we're at 707 now. I think it's the longest streak in professional baseball, definitely currently. I know there's a big poster at the stadium hanging on the wall that Sports Illustrated ranked us in the top 10 for the toughest ticket to get in all sports, including Major League, minor league, any sport, football, basketball, or baseball.
Wow, that's impressive. I've got a lot of family at home, and it is tough to get Dragons tickets.
Yeah, luckily I don't have to worry about that anymore. So
your current manager for the Dragons is Todd Benzinger. With the 20th anniversary of the 1990 Reds, I'm going to ask you for a little information, a little insight on the manager of the Dragons, and do you have a favorite player from the 1990 Reds championship team?
My favorite player from the 90 team would probably be Eric Davis. I was at that perfect age growing up when Eric was breaking in with the Reds and just watching him and the way he played every day. But the moment I'll never forget, as most Reds fans won't, is, Billy Bates rounding third and coming to the plate when Joe Oliver hit that ball down the line. So I think for a few days here, Billy Bates not getting my favorite player, but I'd have to go with Eric Davis on that one.
And any insights on the manager, Todd Benzinger? I think he's in his 3rd season, I believe, in Dayton?
Second season. Okay. Second season. Todd's been great. He's been great for these players. He brings so much experience. Having gone up through the minor leagues, he is a local guy, born and raised in the Cincinnati area, so he knows a lot of the history of the Reds, although he did play for many other organizations. And I think he can relate a lot of the guys, having a couple kids of his own that are around, the same age as our players. I think he's related great to them. Just so much major league experience, not only with him, but with the rest of our staff.
You mentioned Mike Leake earlier and how he skipped the minor leagues. Obviously, a lot of guys started out in Dayton. Today's lineup actually had, I think it was 5 of 9 of the starting players started out in Dayton. It was Homer Bailey, Bruce, Dickerson was in the lineup, Paul Janisch was in the lineup. What do you think of our oldest Chapman, Mike Leake, the newest Reds pitchers, and the guy I've been hearing a lot about is your closer down in Dayton, Donnie Joseph?
Yeah, first to start with Leake and Chapman, I got the opportunity to spend the entire spring training out with the Reds in Goodyear, Arizona, so I was able to sneak out to the backfield quite a bit to watch those guys. One thing with Chapman where I kind of got a little insight was, the guy that kind of served as his mentor and his interpreter was Tony Fosses, who was our pitching coach in Dayton. So I got to speak with Tony a lot, and kind of watch Chapman throw some sides, throw some bullpen sessions, and actually get into a minor league game and watch him. And the kid got an electric arm, especially from the left side. And I think there's some small things that he still has to learn, but, I see him in a Reds uniform probably very soon.
What about Donnie Joseph?
We just got home from a game tonight where he was touching 92, 93 on the gun, something he, hasn't done in a while, touched 93. He's a smart pitcher. He knows when he needs to go with his fastball, when he needs to go with his slider, and, his off-speed stuff has just been dirty lately. Donnie's one of my favorites on the team, but I don't see him staying in Dayton very long. I think he's got a path, probably a quick mover through the organization, being a left-handed reliever.
Yeah, I know he's considered one of the top left-handed pitchers in the organization. A lot of other guys like Chris Valaika, Chris Heisey, Todd Frazier, Zach Cozart, those guys have all passed through Dayton. Do you have any insights on them? What should we be looking out for with those guys?
The biggest thing for me that, most normal fans might not know is how great kids all these guys are. Like you mentioned, Valaika, Frazier, Heisey, even Drew Stubbs, they're just such great people. I get chance to spend time with all these guys in spring training. To me, they're better people than they are baseball players. And I think that's a big, tribute, and it'll really help, what the fans will see. Frazier was with me, 2 years ago in Dayton. Kid can play all over the place, which is great. He can play some seconds, some shorts, some thirds, some outfield. And I think that is going to be Frazier's calling card probably pretty soon here in the major leagues, that he is versatile enough to play everywhere.
I think a lot of that has to do with your new hitting coach this year, Ken Griffey Sr. You can't say enough about that guy. I've heard nothing but good things about him. Todd Benzinger has actually said how much he enjoyed being on the 1990 team with Senior.
This is, if I'm correct, this is Senior's first year as an actual coach. He's been kind of a roving instructor the last couple of years. A couple people I've talked to, we were a little nervous how he would slide in, but he has just lived in perfectly. He's adapted great to, what we call life in the minor leagues. A guy like Senior hasn't been himself in the minors since he played. And sitting on buses for 7 or 8 hours, and then, usually the ideal situation. But he's slid in great. I know the players just love having him and his expertise around. He's really helping, work with a lot of guys in the cage, and he's been good on and off the field for all of our players so far.
I know you spent your first 2 years with the Dragons in Sarasota, Florida, and they obviously made the switch to Goodyear. You said you got to spend a lot of time watching guys like Chapman and Leake in spring training. What's the biggest difference between the two spring training facilities, and what's one of the coolest things that goes on in spring training that we might not know about?
Comparing Sarasota, Florida to Goodyear, Arizona, city-wise, I'd have to probably lean towards Sarasota. It's just more of a, there's nothing like the Florida weather, being able to be at the beach in 3 minutes. Goodyear is kind of an up-and-coming place. You're only 20 minutes from downtown Phoenix, so there isn't a whole lot that goes on around Goodyear. Facility-wise, Sarasota can't hold a candle to Goodyear. What we're able to do in Goodyear, as far as the video and the scouting rooms and the conference rooms, the number of fields we have, the number of pitching mounds that we have, are unbelievable compared to what we had in Sarasota. A big example would be in Sarasota, all the minor leaguers had to eat lunch in their lockers. They just sit in their lockers and eat lunch because there's no place for them to go. Now, when we go out to Goodyear, they've got a huge conference room where they can sit and eat, enjoy each other's company. They can sit with the coaching staffs and kind of talk a little and bond a little more. I think, what the normal fans might not know about spring training is, especially for the younger players in minor league camp, this is their life. They're trying to make a club. Just because they're invited to come to spring training doesn't mean they're guaranteed a spot. We brought in, I'd say, almost 160 players this year that are fighting for spots on what we call a full season club. And, a bunch of guys unfortunately got released or got left behind that are still in Goodyear for a spring training.
For the rest of this interview, visit wackreds.com.